Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sky Lila Experience. Today we have Sage Miller, a life coach, with us, and I'm so excited. She's one of my favorite people in the entire world, and it's really just one of our regular conversations, but recorded for the podcast. So, hey Sage, thanks for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm just gonna hide myself so I can only look at you. Um, Okay, so today I wanted to ask, first of all, let's start off with what is it that you do? I know you have a program. What's the program called? What does it look like?
Yeah, so my program is called Design Your Life. And as you know, I've been obsessed with mindset, personal development, psychology, and just how we operate as people since I was little. And
Mhm.
so this program is really the culmination of like everything that I've learned in the world of personal development, mindset, behavioral change in the last about 10 years. So what I get to do, what I love to do is I take people through a 360 audit of their life. So we look at all the major areas of their life, and then we really get them clear on who are they, what do they want, and then we design a roadmap to get there. So it's really like foundational principles of psychology, personal development, and behavioral change, but helping people really understand, what do I actually want right now and in this next chapter, and then designing a roadmap to get them there.
Interesting. What would you say some of the patterns that you've recognized in people might be? Just the common things that actually happen a lot more than we would expect, or the same sort of problems, if you call it, that people
Right.
have.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think working with high performers and high achievers every day, it's been really fun because I did start to very quickly see some patterns emerge, which I found fascinating. And one of the ones that I found to be most interesting, which I've witnessed in myself too, is that I think high performing people tend
Mhm.
to be really good at exerting their energy externally. So they pour their time, their energy into their career, their friendships, their health and fitness, all these things that are sort of outside of them in a way.
Mhm.
And in turn, are not always as good at figuring out what refuels them. And when I say what refuels them, it's not just like, oh, I feel more energized after I work out. It's like what solely nourishes you, almost like passively. Like you are just fully receiving. It's just joy. It's not work in any capacity. It's not for any societal gain. It's not to look a certain way. It's just nourishing to you. And I think we often feel like we're better than that, or we feel like we don't need it. Like other people need to recharge, but I can just keep going.
Yeah.
And I work with a lot of people who are either hitting or rapidly approaching burnout because they're doing all the things, but they're not really recharging.
I completely agree. So why I wanted to speak with you is because one, you're a high performer and entrepreneur and everything that you do, which hearing what you're saying, I know that's something that you and I both also have
Yeah.
struggled with. I think we've got it down now, but it's still a work in progress and a flow. What are things that you do for you that is refueling and nourishing to the soul?
Yeah. Oh, this is such a good question. And you're so right. I've 100% struggled with this. And I think most people who coach and guide, it's usually you're helping a younger version of yourself, right? It's me 3 to 5 years ago and all the things I wish I had kind of known how to do.
Mhm.
So I would say today, I've learned that humans, like people I love, recharge me like nothing else. So just getting time with my people and fully turning off my business mind in those moments. Like we just go play, let's go on a walk, let's go grab a glass of wine, get a nice dinner, let's go swimming, like just living, feeling alive with people that I love is massive. Going on walks is really recharging for me. And I've noticed I don't really like to call friends. I don't like to listen to podcasts or music. I just flow, like just truly, and I don't rush, it's like, let me just fully like just wander essentially.
I love
Right. So it's often things that are the opposite of how you normally operate in your day to day. For a
it.
lot of people, a lot of us, like we hit our day super hard, but then we need that thing that really refuels us. So those are two, I would say. um, Going to the beach, And then just like making my space super cozy and like having a really peaceful evening to myself feels so good too.
So what would you say that routine looks like then? Because I think what some people struggle with, and I'm sure you've recognized, is yes, they know what perhaps, or some people I say would might be the opposite of us and know what refuels them, but they don't know what
Sure.
that balance looks like. And I know for myself, I recognized my balance of seeing people working out is completely different than what most people sort of tell me it should be like. What does your balance look like if you took me through a week? Are you
Yeah.
are you hanging out with friends once a month or is it once a day? Are you like, what's
Mm.
that daily routine sort of in a weekly overview?
Yeah. And this is something, it's such a good question that I think this is like, I call it like tinkering, where you have, I almost think about our life as like 100 little dials in front of us. And we have to like turn each little one to try to find our set point. And then that changes in different chapters too. So it's always kind of evolving. I would say for me, it's been really changing the last couple of months. As you know, I've been spending more time alone and I've been seeing what that feels like. But right now, I would say what feels really good to me is usually from like 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. is my time. So it's usually meditation, it's journaling and gratitudes. It's usually getting about an hour long workout and at the gym, breakfast, shower, get dressed, all kind of the things that I need to just like get out of the way to lay the foundation for my day. And then usually like about 9 to 4, 4:30 is I try to just be kind of like laser focused, like really just doing the work. If I need it, I'll go on a little walk in the middle or something, but really just kind of like in my flow. And then honestly, from let's say like 4 or 5 p.m. onward, I usually want to be with people. I want to go connect. And so maybe we go be out in the world, maybe we just catch up and like have a cozy night in. But at that point in the day, I'm usually craving connection and kind of unplugging from the doing and the to-do lists and the work world, with the exception of like a couple evenings a week. It usually feels good to have time to myself. And I think that's again where I'm kind of tinkering is like, how much do I love to just have a night to myself versus how much do I love to be with others? And I also think with so many of us working from home nowadays, that changes things too. Because if I'm alone working all day in my apartment and then I'm alone spending time all night in my apartment, it kind of feels like I'm just hanging out in the office alone. It's not like always the best.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
I've noticed that too. When I go out to work and I'm working in an office or at the gallery, then I want more time alone. But when I'm at home, because I've sort of had my socializing for the day, but if
Yes.
it's opposite, then it's the opposite. Interesting. Okay, thank you. So I want to take it back to the work part of your day. What does that look like as an entrepreneur? And I'm going to ask a few questions, so answer them however they are. But I know it's totally evolved so much for you because you before were juggling however many jobs and your own business. I think you've stepped away from that now. How long, if we took us back 10 years, what has that process looked like with the balance of everything? And then what challenges came up? And I'll ask it again, but I just want to sort of bring us back to the beginning. What were the challenges? When were those milestones? What changes happened? Like if somebody's starting a business,
Yeah.
we might see you right now and go, oh, she's traveling the world, she's working on her own time, looks so amazing, like wish I could do that. But what happened working up to that
Yeah.
stage?
Oh my gosh. Well, could talk for a very long time on all of
Yeah.
I think this is such a good question though, because we see all these tools coming out. There are now like AI tools that design your schedule for you, and I find it to be so interesting because this is something we're not taught. Many of us, like we go to school and we're taught how to get a job. And then we're at the job and we have certain meetings on our calendar. We have certain things to get done and then we kind of get them done. But like our days are very structured for us. So I think this is something a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with the first few years is really like, how do I spend my time? And I think I will forever be learning more about this and getting better at it. But I definitely have learned some of my, I guess I'll say like flaws or hurdles in terms of how I want to spend my time versus how I should spend my time. So I guess say like what I've learned to get better at is trying to isolate and identify the top priorities at the beginning of the day and really start there. And it sounds really simple, but I think that most of us have long to-do lists. We have so much going on, and all of our minds operate so differently. So there are things we all gravitate towards. For me, like I love that feeling of like getting things done. But sometimes I'll float through my day and be like, boom, 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 getting it all done. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, I didn't do the one thing that's the most important thing that needed to happen today. So I think it's really one of the things that I still really work on is getting that one thing done, or maybe it's those three things done, like at all costs, versus kind of like grabbing all the low hanging fruit and that feeling really good and easy. Yeah, so there's a lot obviously within that, but I think one of the most important things is figuring out how you flow, what makes you feel productive, feel like you're getting those wins under your belt.
Right. Would you say you redo that every morning? Like you look at your big to-do list, or is it on a weekly basis, as a monthly intention, annual intention?
Mm.
When and how do you decide what your priority is?
Yeah, so I have basically, as you know, I live on my Google Calendar. It's where I store all of my to-do lists, everything that needs to get done. And so I actually have a running to-do list for every single day, essentially. And anything that didn't get done just kind of rolls over to the next day. So it's really easy for me to start my day. I'll look at, okay, what are all the things that I would ideally love to get done today? And then sometimes I'll put them in order of importance, like 1 through 10. And then in my mind, I know if I only get through three, 1, 2, 3, that's still the best use of my time versus doing 5 through 10, which were secondary tasks.
Right. So what would you say your mental or physical challenges have been building
Mhm.
up to where you are now? What sort
Mm.
of phases have you gone through or cycled through, gotten out of? Just what's been happening within you? Do you notice a body, your
Mm.
mindset? What's that pattern been?
Yeah. What time frame would you say? Because it's, there are like phases within every single week. So I'm trying to think what would be most
Well,
relevant.
that honestly from the beginning. So say, because some people might not even know that you had another company awaken where,
Mhm.
it's almost like try again, try again.
Yeah.
So like take
Yeah.
us back to when you first
Mhm.
graduated university.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So when I first graduated, I started out in a kind of health and wellness based marketing role. So I was working with a yoga company and I was doing their marketing and their community events. And that was my first like big girl job in a way. And I remember when I got it, I thought, this is my dream job. I love it. I'll be here forever. And then a little while into that, I met this incredible mentor who really changed my life and just helped me dream bigger. Because at the time I really was like, I'll be here forever. And she helped me zoom out and believe in a bigger picture and more possibility for my life. And that was the catalyst. So I did some work with her for a little bit in a health and wellness company. And then when I was 24, myself and my best friend decided to start our own company, which is called Awaken. And I think that period, we did a crazy intensive, like 2 year build where it was just live, sleep, breathe the company. It was really all that either of us did. And we both, although we didn't make a ton of money from that first company, we both always look back on that time and just say, it was boot camp. It was the best thing that we could have had because we learned everything not to do, what to do differently. And a couple of those things I was actually thinking about the other day, I'll just share because I think it's so valuable for anyone wanting to step into entrepreneurship. And this is more anecdotal, not like formal business advice, but this was my experience was that we spent so much time and money on things that were not at all important.
Mm,
And I know you and I have talked about this. I'm such a believer that usually the best product isn't the one that blows up. The one that blows up has the strategy, the marketing, the dollars, it's in front of more eyeballs.
Mm.
there's usually probably a better product out there than every single one that blows up and becomes this top sensation. But if no one knows about it, it's not going to go anywhere.
Mhm.
So with our first company, we spent so much time on the logo, the brand colors, the name of the company, all of these things that felt so important. When at the end of the day, I think what's really important is you get your systems dialed, you have a good product, and you're amazing at marketing, right?
Mhm.
Like you serve your customers well and effectively, and you have a product that is legitimate, but you really crush the world of marketing. I think that's mostly what it's about, in my opinion. Again, so long as you can back up the marketing and you have credibility in the product.
Mm.
And this is, you and I have read a lot of the similar books, but this is the concept of MVP, which is launch the minimum viable product.
Yeah.
So I look at, for example, like when we did our website, we spent thousands of dollars and weeks obsessing over it. And then we launched it, and immediately it was clear so much was wrong with it, structurally, functionally, all of it. And had we done 25% of the work and showed the framework to
Right.
someone, we could have made those changes, right? Or 50% of the work and showed it to someone. So now I'm really religious about scribble something and get it in front of someone. My current company doesn't have a logo. I don't really have brand colors.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter to me, and it's grown so much more quickly.
Yeah, it's almost what kind of everyone says is just start. The rest
Yeah.
will sort itself out. But I think that's what a lot is. We see these massive companies who are so developed, and it's
Mhm.
like, okay, I need this and this and this to start, but then you're not even really sure what the service is or the product is, and then you're like, okay, great,
Right.
now what?
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. It's really figuring out if you can meet an unmet need and if you can communicate that unmet need in a way that lands for people. And then sky's the limit, right? Then you can do anything and everything. But I think getting that piece right first is crucial.
So, do you have any mantras that you say to yourself, or words or phrases that you just repeat to yourself ongoing, sort of to keep you going throughout the days or week?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is something that is evolving for me right now as well. But I think a big one is staying in the mindset and the feeling of abundance.
Mm.
For me, I in the past have definitely let myself ride the wave of when there are a lot of clients and there's a lot coming in. I feel so good about the business. I feel like it's all going to work out. I feel so valuable. And then when there's a dip, I get really unsure. I get confused. I've been a little bit more shakeable, I would say, in the past. And I'm really working now on just staying in that feeling of abundance no matter what, because I'm such a believer, and I know you are too, in the law of attraction. And so what I started to notice is when I feel scarcity, I then emit more scarcity, which then creates more scarcity, which then magnetizes more scarcity. And it's really easy to spiral in this way. So for me right now, a really important mantra is just the idea that in this lifetime, there will always be more than enough. And when I just claim that consistently, I see it all around me. But if I claim the feeling of, I feel stuck, I need more clients, then that's all I see around me. So it's interesting to see what we can cultivate more of just by what we believe and what we're kind of choosing to see and feel.
Mhm. So, what does that practice look like for you? Are you reading something? Are you writing something? Is it just when you remember? Do you have alarms? What does that look like throughout the day? How do you actually remind yourself to stay in that abundant state?
Yeah. I think I used to be a lot more type A about all of this. I would have like specific mantras I would write down every single morning. And um, there are seasons with entrepreneurship and personal development, all of that. So in the same way that I felt like my first company was boot camp, and now with my coaching business, I'm able to flow a little bit more. I feel like I used to like religiously write out every single mantra in the morning. And for me now, it's more so I'm definitely in a season of less is more. So I used to have maybe 20 mantras or affirmations that I would write down every morning versus right now, what I just shared is kind of the only mantra that I'm focused on. It's just like that one belief, that one vibration, that one state of being. And so I think as I have simplified, I'm able to just kind of stay in the focus of that one thing, and I'll journal at night and maybe I'll look at it in the morning, but it it sticks a little better because I'm not focused on 20 different things all at once.
I completely agree. And I know we've been shifting great luckily together in all of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I've been wondering to myself is, do you think it's because we're more sort of aware of how the universe is working that we've simplified it?
Mm.
And if we had this awareness that we would have just jumped to it? Or do you think that stage, say when you were type A, like I got to this, I got to this, was a stepping stone and it was necessary? Or would you say to somebody who's not even in this world, you could skip that step? That's what,
Mm.
and that might
Such
be
a good question.
food for thought.
Ooh, yeah. Hmm. I feel like for me, it was an important stage. It's
Mhm.
a great question though, because I also completely see what you're saying. There's a world in which could you just jump to that now? I feel like the only way I was able to consolidate down to two things in the morning instead of five and one mantra instead of 20, I think was by sort of having that whole buffet, right? And leaning into all these different explorations of life, of mindset tools, of books, of mantras. It was sort of like trialing everything. And then from there, being able to consolidate down to like, okay, what are the few things that are really going to serve me right now? Knowing all of this.
Right. Okay. I agree. I just wanted to hear your
Mhm.
perspective of it. If, is
Yeah.
what are the stepping stones? Because I really do think
Uh,
each step is a necessary step.
Me too.
So when I also consider somebody successful and a high performer, and when I'm considering these interviews, I'm looking at everything in where are you in career, health. I know well, that another thing for health. Where I'm getting at is family. You have a really amazing relationship with your family. How
Mm.
do you maintain that with everything else that you're doing in your friendships? Because I think that's a pillar of success. And or what have the challenges been as you've been building this amazing life for yourself?
Thank you for bringing that up because it's such an important piece. I completely agree. And it hasn't always been easy to balance it all. I feel like luckily my people are actually the most important part of my life. And so I, even when I'm in seasons, which I'll just say the last like 8 years has probably been one long season of
Mm.
hyper focus and entrepreneurial building and time blocking and just really giving it my all. I still have the belief and the feeling that the most productive thing I could be doing or the most important thing I could be doing is connecting with the people that I love and really being present and enjoying that time together. So it's helpful that that is such a core value of mine because it does help me lean into some of those moments.
Mm.
And if you were to ask my mom, she would 100% say that it hasn't always been easy for me. During family vacations and holidays over the last couple of years, sometimes I get really angsty because I'm like, I just need to like get something done and like propel my business forward and stay in momentum. And so I think I've continued to put it at the forefront of my priorities list. And sometimes that's been uncomfortable. I'm
Right.
trying to unplug and relax with them, but internally, I'm still like, I want to like go and progress and keep that momentum.
So what do you do? How do you actually sort of brainwash yourself into being just calm and present in that instance?
Yeah, I think it's a practice. I wouldn't say I've like perfected it, but I think I use it as an opportunity to really watch myself. And I'll have beautiful conversations with my mom about it because she obviously knows me so well and is like, okay, like this is uncomfortable. Let's talk about that, let's explore that. And maybe you need this discomfort. Maybe that's a good thing. How else are you going to really recharge? And she's so right. I usually arrive to family vacations and I'm more drained than I realize because I just tend to give my life my all every day and then it's can be more draining than I'm aware of. So yeah, it's still a practice, but I think I use it now more so. I try to be curious. I'm like, you're having a really hard time unplugging. Okay, what is that? And let's look at that. And then I try to find things that just feel good. I'm not as good at like sitting and watching movies, but again, maybe we can go on a long walk as a family and then I'll be able to like be in gentle movement and have a conversation. And so it's figuring out like, how do I slow down in a way that feels good? And then I also think I still have to find my own boundaries because, especially when you work for yourself, I'd imagine you've seen this too. People will like invite you to a lunch in the
Mm,
middle of the day, or they'll call me at
yeah.
like 2, 3 p.m. and be like, oh, why didn't you pick up? And I've had to really be like, hey, like, I'll check in with you after my work day, or like I'm in my work day, and so that's something I've also had to really set. That's
Like you
hard,
do not
especially
work
with
it.
family.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Like I think like aunts, uncles, grandparents are like, oh, well, I mean, she kind of does her own thing. So I could call her at like 9 a.m. And that's really hard for me. So I'm like, I want to talk to you, but like this has to be my work day or else it's never gonna happen.
I've had that thought over the years too, exactly that, because I'm like, yes, I have like the choice in time
Mhm.
right now, but I have this freedom because I have the discipline. So like I need to
Yes.
be disciplined in order to continue
Yeah.
this freedom. Like
Yes.
been
Yeah.
such interested. That's so nice to hear you're like, the same sort of keeping
Yeah.
the balance. Uh,
Always.
so for somebody who has, I would say, lived away from their family for so long, but been able to maintain that, what's your thought process behind? Because for me, like when I think about maintaining friendships with people across the world, I consciously am like, oh, I should set up a time to call. What does that duration look like? How often would you visit? How often would you call to maintain that your healthy relationships?
Yeah. So luckily, I'm just a few hour flight away from where I'm from, which is so helpful. I would say I try to go back like 3 or 4 times a year. So it's like every couple of months I get to see my family. And, my mom and I'll talk and be like, oh, we've gone too far. Like we'll know when we're like, oh, it's been too long. We need to kind of schedule something. And then I think it's different with everyone. So as you know, there are some friends who are really good at reaching out and checking in, some who kind of go MIA and you have to be in the driver's seat of the reach outs. Like my dad and I were both really type A. So we've had seasons where we actually have like a 30-minute call on the calendar every week because we're like, we'll just go a month without talking because we don't even think about it if it's not actually on the calendar. Versus my mom and I can just kind of flow. And so it's, I think it's a little different with each person. And again, it's tinkering, it's figuring out what is gonna help make it easy for us. But one thing that I do really believe in and that I work with my clients on in every aspect of their life is that optimization piece. So, for example, I have a group of 5 friends and we meet every Thursday. And before we decided, okay, we're just going to block off every Thursday night. We have a calendar invite that's shared that we all have that blocks off our Thursdays. We would go like a month and then we would go through the whole, okay, when can you come, when can you come, when can you come, and
Right.
we would never get to see each other. So I think it's learning from what hasn't worked in the past and figuring out what can I set up once right now and then never worry about it again. Like you and I, we just set up that monthly call because we were like, okay, now that we have a huge time change, now that we have so much going on, let's just set it on the calendar and then we know we're going to get to connect at least once a month.
Mhm.
And so I'm huge on what can you set up once, systems, structures, and then be done with it and know that almost like that relationship or that portion of your life is dialed.
Yes. It's good. You can take your foot off the thinking mindset. Just
Yes.
focus.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for sharing on that. I think it's so important, and a lot of people don't recognize. Like when I sometimes I'll see people, or for so long, I would see people doing so well at a young age where I'm like, oh my God. And then I think, oh, well, maybe their family life though isn't quite where like
Mhm.
the balance is out of whack. So that's why I wanted to,
Yeah.
because I know you truly are balanced in every pillar of life, which is amazing.
Mhm.
Another one I wanted to ask, health, your diet and fitness routine. What does that actually look like? And why is it so important to you? How does it how does it affect each and every day?
Okay, this is such a good question. And this has also changed so much. I was actually just thinking the other day, I've worked out like pretty much just about every day for the last 10 years now. So it's cool to see all that evolution because it was really when I was 18 that I started like religiously being in the gym every single day, strength training, all of that. So of course it's evolved in 100 different ways. And again, I think where I've landed with it is there's some structure and there's some flow, which I'll explain. So I think a lot of my tinkering in my 20s has been figuring out what is a sustainable version of a high performance life. So
Yeah.
what is like maximum output that I can sustain actually happily and feel really good about. So fitness wise, that usually looks like getting in a workout. I would say like anywhere between like 4 to 6 times a week, somewhere in that range. And I've learned to really give myself grace with it because, especially as women with our hormones and our cycle, there's so much going on that a lot of times it's not good to force training if you don't feel good. And then some days you'll know you feel amazing and it's the best thing to do. So I try to be religious about doing 1 hour of movement in the morning. And usually it's strength training, which is a little more high intensity, but then some days it's a 1 hour walk or some yoga. And so it's the structure is like this hour is for movement and then the flow is what do I really feel up for and what could I really do today? And then same with nutrition. I've gone through periods of know this, know that, and it's kind of landed somewhere a little bit more balanced where I definitely prioritize protein intake. I don't really do gluten and dairy just because it doesn't make me feel good. And then I try to flow beyond that, right? So it's same as you. It's a lot of similar things. It's smoothies, it's salads, it's warm bowls and things like that. And I try to focus on vegetables and fruits and protein. Um, and then I try not to do much beyond that because I would say if I look back at the chapters in my life where I was, let's say, like the fittest I've ever been, I wasn't the happiest.
Mm.
And so what's important to me now is again, what's the fittest version I could be of that's non-restrictive and that's going to say yes to happy hour, that's going to say yes to sharing a cookie with a friend. Like it's never going to be worth it for me to not have those experiences and memories. So again, it's that balance.
So true. Thank you. Would you say that your weekdays are structured the same as your weekends when you have this hour in the morning? Do you follow that 7 days a week, or how does your weekends, or are they
Yeah.
all another day? What's the difference for you?
Yeah. So I think that my brain's desire is to structure my weekends. Like structure is where I'm comfortable, So I want to like time block my weekends and like map it all out. But I don't actually think that's the best thing for me. And I've found that that can also lead to feeling a little more burnt out because I've learned I need structure, I need discipline, focus, productivity, but I also need the opposite of that. I need to play, I need to not have a plan, I need to feel irresponsible, I need all those things too, again, to make it sustainable. So right now on my weekends, I try to just flow. There's no rules, it's like, okay, if I want to go to the gym, great. If I want to go on a walk, great. Maybe I want to go to the beach, great. And I try to just give myself those 2 days to do whatever feels good, be with people that I enjoy and flow. And sometimes that's really uncomfortable. And I will get a little bit like, again, angsty on the weekends because I'm not as good at it, but I can feel that it's important for me. And I can feel that I need to leave space for the unknown and for things to just flow and to meet a stranger on the street and not be like, oh, I gotta go, like onto my next time block.
True.
Yeah.
I totally relate. That's amazing. Thanks so much for sharing everything. One other thing I just wanted to ask, since well, I mean, I've done it with you too. It's the new year and it's just an interesting time. What has that wrap up of the previous year going forward into the next year looked like for you? Structure, flow, what has that process been?
Yeah. So I think as someone who guides others all the time, I'm obviously such a believer in coaching. I think that we can only take ourselves so far, and that when we can just openly receive and be guided, different things happen, new ideas come, and it's just different. So I actually attended someone who I really look up to. Her name's Emily Ford. She did this sort of, it was called Recalibrate 2024. And it was basically this 3-hour intensive review of 2023 and strategize for 2024. And it was really cool to see because it's basically the same process that I take my clients through. And so it was funny to see how many similarities there were, but how much I needed to be guided. And I needed that, like, someone else to hold the structure so I could really flow within it and be in my own reflection and my own planning and have that sort of container for it. So that really served me. And there's so much unknown. The first week of the year, I was honestly so just energetically in a weird place. And I felt really confused as to, okay, what exactly do I want? What's my strategy? What's my vision? What's my game plan? So I think that the reflection piece is crucial because we learn from who and how we were last year. I think the planning piece is great because we get to build the frame for the overall vision. And I think there's just going to be unknown too. And there's going to be elements that we couldn't have anticipated, elements that don't go how we thought they could. So I think for me, it's been about, again, trying to have space for all three and trusting in the fact that it's not going to maybe go exactly to plan. And sometimes we're just meant to be in the unknown for a little bit, which this year has definitely been for me so far, is a lot of question mark, a lot of questioning what I'm desiring and how I want to move forward and my state of being, my priorities. So I'm trying to just surrender to that process right now and see what comes up.
Okay, well, you answered my next question. I basically, from what you're hearing and what I've been focusing on as well, as sort of the law of detachment and surrendering everything. But I think it's a lot easier said than done. How would you say you actually practice surrendering? Or even if I know it's as simple as that, you just have to surrender, but what does that look like when you're making an intention? How do you do it?
It's such a good question because it's easy to talk about, but what do you actually do?
How do you practice it?
I think for me, it is loosening my grip.
Hmm.
And I have a tendency to kind of want to white knuckle life, which we've talked about with the goals, the vision, the strategy, the planning, the structure, the time blocking. Like, I feel like I want to feel in control of my life. I want to feel like I'm propelling it forwards. And frankly, I do, which is really exciting. But I can feel when I'm being almost like pulled away from the things that I want to be white knuckling. I can feel when they're out of grasp. And that's usually my indicator to let go a little bit. And so I think really what that looks like day to day is just loosening my expectations around myself. You know, like I shared with you, the first week of this year was so hard for me to focus, which is really difficult for me because I want to move through my life and progress things. But I surrendering looked like closing the computer and being like, okay, maybe I'm supposed to work on the apartment today or go on a walk, or how can I be creative, and just listening to what I'm actually feeling and kind of almost like going with the flow of the river a little bit versus like, I must, swim upstream right now, being like, okay, all signs are pointing right. I'm going to surrender and like lean into what that might be suggesting.
I was actually thinking about this morning, just
Mhm.
I feel like we're always on the same page, but
Yeah.
this, a stage of, I realized for myself, it's almost spring cleaning because I sort
Mhm.
of felt the same of like, whoa, what's going on? Where's my focus? And then I realized though, when I'm cleaning something, first I have to take, everything off the counter and it's a mess to clean it, and then I can put it back. Where I thought, oh, well, I'm sort of just in spring cleaning, like I'm pulling everything up to just so I can see it all, and then I'll reorganize where it
Yeah.
feels less comfortable in it, but then once it's clean, you're like, oh, it's okay, summertime.
Yeah, it feels so much better. That's exactly what it is. It's that I think about it like zooming out and you're looking at all these parts of your life and it can be so overwhelming, but then you kind of go in and make some of the changes and then you feel grounded and like reset in a whole new way.
So just to wrap it up, what would you say? Do you have any words of wisdom, 3 words or a quote that you would tell somebody who is, no matter what age they are, but making a change and perhaps wanting to start a business of some sort?
Yeah. Oh, there are so many good ones that have been so transformational for me. I think, okay, two things that come to mind that have put my mind at ease, which I think a lot of us as entrepreneurs really need is one, the idea that success is predictable.
Mm.
There are a certain set of behaviors, patterns, there are certain beliefs, and there is a certain amount of time that if you stay in it and you keep chipping away at something every single day and learning and growing and evolving, success becomes predictable. And that has been so grounding for me because I think as entrepreneurs, everyone I know, including myself, has gone through seasons of I'm sacrificing everything I can think to. Is this going to amount to everything or nothing? Like, does this make sense? And so, this recognition that it's not an if, it's a when, like, it really is predictable who is going to succeed and when you're going to succeed. That's been really helpful for me. Also, the idea that you can't fail unless you quit. You're gonna go somewhere with something, right? You can't fail unless you just totally like throw in the towel. So that's been really helpful for me too. It's like, again, just these beliefs of just keep showing up for what you believe in, what you want to see come to life. Just keep showing up and something's going to happen. Doors are going to open. If you really believe it's possible and you keep moving towards it, things will surprise you. And then more so on the side of personal development and psychology and just developing a relationship with yourself. One of my favorite quotes from Glennon Doyle is this idea that all feelings are for feeling. And I think it's really tempting to feel all the good feelings and then push away or down all the hard feelings. And so that permission that all of your feelings are meant to be felt and understood and explored has really served me too.
So thank you so much for sharing all of that. I was laughing inside because of just how much I related to it. One with the failure, I was doing my annual reflection, and one of the questions that I had researched or looked up some questions to make my own, and it's,
Mhm.
well, how did I fail? Or like, where did I fail? And I read it, and I thought, well, that doesn't count. I didn't fail. I'm not finished.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's still in a work in progress, like that's,
Right.
but for um just the last thing that you said of feeling your feelings. And I think
Mhm.
this is something that I'm constantly going back and forth between, like, well, how much do I feel them? And then how much do I feel it and let it go? How long do I
Mhm.
sort of stay there? What is that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a good question. And I think this is, unfortunately, I think this is one of those things that takes practice in getting closer with yourself and developing that relationship with yourself. Because I still question sometimes, am I coming to resolution on this or am I ruminating on this right now?
Yeah.
Usually we can kind of feel when something's productive, and you can almost feel when you're like sifting through something, when you're having realizations, when you're feeling seen in yourself. That's when it's productive. When you're like, oh, I didn't see it from this lens, or how can I see this from this person's perspective? Or, oh my gosh, that reminds me of time when I was 7 and I struggled with this same emotion. Like, that's when it's productive for me. When I am just almost like, yeah, ruminating on something and I can feel that I'm almost just like being grumpy about it because I just want to kind of feel the feeling. That's when I'll kind of be like, all right, you're done. Like you felt it, you know what you're feeling, and like we're kind of just festering in it for no reason now. And that's when I'll kind of redirect myself. But it's still a question of like, is this productive or is it a little bit much? So I think it takes discernment for
Right.
sure.
No, beautifully said. Thank you. That was such a clear and concise way of sort of how to distinguish the two.
Mm.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Sage, for coming on today. I greatly appreciate every moment of your time and your existence on this planet. I love you so much.
Love you too. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so inspired by everything you do and just all the facets of different life and business and things that you're so engaged with. And I know we've been wanting to do this for quite some time. So I'm just honestly honored to be here. And I'm so excited to be a part of this aspect of your life.
Thanks, doll. I appreciate that. I think we equally feel each other and that have that balance. That's why I'm like so grateful to have you in my life and how the world works.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Okay. Thanks everyone for listening. I will share some information on where to find Sage's information at the bottom of the podcast. Have the best day ever.